people are familiar, at least through like basic history classes, about the ancient Assyrian. People know about the Assyrians existed. Many don't know that Assyrians still exist. We describe the homeland as like Mesopotamia. So Iraq, Syria, Turkey, Iran. In the past 2 decades, it's been going on for a while, but the past 2 decades especially, many Assyrians have been forced to leave these areas, and we have communities cropping up all over the world.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Near East, the podcast that tries to make a sense of what's happening in the Middle East. Joe Snell is an award-winning Assyrian American journalist based in Erbil, northern Iraq. His work has taken him to multiple countries in the region, working for the Washington Post, Al Monitor, and many other outlets. He's the founder of the Assyrian Journal and the author of Our Assyrian Story, focusing on the Assyrian population and its diaspora. Today, we'll hear about his experience reporting in Iraq and what it's like to report on one of the oldest and most underreported populations in the world. Hi, Joe. How are you?
Good. How about yourself, Francesca?
Oh, good. Thank you so much for coming. I'm really excited about this conversation. First of all, what are you working on at the moment? And what is your day like in Erbil now?
Oh, that's an interesting question. So what I came here for was human-centric stories, to put a human side to some of the stories here. Thinking about an American audience, I think a lot of them see like a big picture, a broad picture about the Middle East, especially the Assyrian community. So if I can put faces to some of these stories, and they don't need to be the biggest stories in the world. One story I'm doing is about one of the last Assyrian farmers here in Erbil, and how he's fighting to keep his land. And there's another story about how the Christian population in Iraq has plummeted over the last 2 decades, and trying to look at some of the issues behind that. But I really just want to put faces behind some of these stories. Yeah, that's the big push.
I would like to start from the beginning. How did you get into journalism and what brought you to the region?
I was working in the entertainment industry in Los Angeles for a number of years. So my undergraduate was at USC in Los Angeles. I studied film and business law, and then I worked at a film and TV agency for a while, and then a couple other companies. I mean, my whole plan was to be a film and TV executive. I never had like this journalism idea, but I did it in high school. I did journalism. I wrote like some short stories here and there, but I never thought about it. And then the Islamic State swept through Syria and Iraq, as we're all well aware of. And there were a lot of stories about how it impacted the Assyrian community in particular that I was becoming more familiar with. But many of these stories existed largely in social media posts or WhatsApp messages to family or friends. I didn't see it covered largely in larger outlets. And when it was covered in larger outlets, it didn't feel like there was a face to the story. Like what I said before, it just felt very like broad, like covering the community in these like large numbers. So I wanted to start telling these stories. And within a month of like it clicking my head, like I need to tell these things, and praying on it a lot, to be honest. I wanted to understand that was the right path. I left my career in Los Angeles and I moved to Texas, and I started working for a local news outlet there to understand how to do the whole reporting thing. And in my spare time, I was covering stories about Assyrians, and there wasn't a lot of appetite from like outlets to cover these stories about Assyrians. So that was kind of the gist of starting the Assyrian Journal. Was I wanted a place for these stories to live and a place for the community to talk about itself. So I started doing those stories like on the nights and weekends, and then working my local news job. And I did that for a bit of time. And then I did my graduate studies at Northwestern in Chicago. And then I worked at Al Monitor in DC, and later the Washington Post in DC. And then an opportunity presented itself last year. There was some challenges going on at the Washington Post. There was a round of buyouts offered, and I saw it. I mean, we could see the writing on the wall and how things were changing. So I saw it as an opportunity to jump at something I'd wanted to do for a long time, which was be on the ground in the Middle East, and in particular covering minority stories. So I took that opportunity in October. I moved to Iraq, and I've been here since. Whole like road trip here.
How's it going? You've been there for a few months now. What are the main challenges that you faced reporting in Iraqi Kurdistan, and specifically on the Assyrian community that is facing many struggles at the moment in that region?
Yeah, so it's coming here is something I'd wanted to do for a while, and I've visited here since 2019. I've always come for like a couple weeks. We have Chabnisan or Akitu, which is like the Assyrian New Year. It's April 1st. It's like it usually lasts like a week long of different like festivities and things. And So I'd come for like 2 weeks every year since then. But to move here in October is a totally different ball game in little ways and big ways. When you move here, you think you have a sense of the life and the people and like some of the challenges. Like getting into a routine was one of the first things that was like a challenge for me. Like little things you don't even think about, going to the grocery store, things like that. And there were like bigger challenges as well. Like the language barrier was one. My Arabic's not very great. I don't speak Kurdish, so it's like learning just some of the basics to get by. And then the freelancing side too. You learn a lot about yourself as a reporter when it's all on you. So I was used to being in a newsroom, crafting a story with an editor, like working with a team to put these things together. So now when it's all on me, it's like you learn about yourself and you grow in a lot of different ways. I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty. When I was at the Washington Post, it opened up a lot of doors, and like some of those doors are tougher to open now. And it made me better. One of the biggest things it did was I gained a lot of confidence in myself.
Many people who are watching or listening to this podcast might not really know about the Assyrian population. Maybe they've never heard of them. So if you had to explain to someone who doesn't know anything about them, how would you describe them? Because there is this idea that the Middle East is only populated by Arab people, but it's not like this as we know. So who are Assyrians?
No, that's interesting. So my family, and I know this happened to a lot of other like Assyrians or Christians from the Middle East that are in the U.S. You go to a church in the U.S. and you tell people where you're from. My family's like, yeah, we're Christians from Iraq, and then a lot of times a question you hear back is, oh, when did your family convert to Christianity? And then we have to explain to a lot of people it's actually like Christianity originates from the Middle East and things like that. So I think there's just like this basic misconception about the region. So that was like a big reason I wanted to move. And then obviously the Assyrian component. So I think people are familiar, at least through like basic history classes, about the ancient Assyrian. People know about the Assyrians existed. Many don't know that Assyrians still exist. We describe the homeland as like Mesopotamia. So Iraq, Syria, Turkey, Iran. In the past 2 decades, I mean, it's been going on for a while, but the past 2 decades, especially, many Assyrians have been forced to leave these areas, and we have communities cropping up all over the world. And some of the challenges the community face in the homeland versus diaspora are a bit different. There are some similar. Culture and language preservation, I would say, is something that all Assyrians are facing. Holding on to the culture, like retaining the language. I think it's more pronounced in the diaspora because assimilation is it's a challenge. People are trying to fit in. But then land grabs is a big challenge that's happening here. Families retaining their land, or if they have to leave and then they come back and their land is taken. So those are some of the big challenges. But if I were to say something to people that are watching, is that Assyrians are still very much alive, very much a vibrant community. We're scattered around the world, but we're still here.
You mentioned that Assyrians are particularly impacted by land grabs, they face daily challenges. How have conflicts in Iraq particularly affected them?
I think oftentimes, like Assyrians aren't like mentioned in a lot of big media coverage. This is a big reason why I like wanted to tell these stories. Or if they are mentioned, it's like in broad categories. Something that we see a lot in media is just being referred to as Christians instead of Assyrians. And I think there's an important distinction because when you mention Assyrian, it brings not only the history, but it ties you to the land. So in that way, you can be referred to as an indigenous community. And I think that media like very often like skirts the like ethnic label and just it just refers to Christian. So that's one. But two, it's I mean, humanizing the community. I think a lot of uh like reporters will come here and live in a bubble because it's easy to only see the majority of things. So, for example, a reporter would come here, their fixer would be Kurdish, the officials they talk to are Kurdish, the citizens they talk to are Kurdish. And so you come here and then you leave and you think you have, okay, I have like an idea of what things were there. But if you don't break out of that bubble and talk to minority communities or some other people outside of that, I don't think you have a very well-rounded picture of what's going on. And I think we see that more often than not, especially with the war going on.
Do you think that living full time in Erbil helps you to get a better sense of what things are like?
Yeah, well, I think that comes like naturally with whenever you like move to a place versus visit for just a few weeks. And it comes up in different ways. Like even the conversations you have with people. I think when you come for like a week or two. It's when I used to come 2019, 2021, 2022. Like you're moving around so quickly, you don't have a time to just like sit in a place and just like observe and just like there's a shop owner I see right next to this place I work, and every morning I say hi to him. And it took
Mhm.
a few weeks, and we have like small conversations now. But those are things that wouldn't happen if I was just visiting for like a few days. That's a relationship that's come after weeks and weeks of like slowly being more comfortable with each other. I think maybe that's part of it too. Is like you get more comfortable in the place. People see you more often. They get more comfortable with you. That gives you access to different places you wouldn't get access to. You would hear like different types of conversations, different types of challenges people are facing.
You mentioned the Assyrian diaspora and how it tries also to preserve their identity through the language, for instance. Are there other ways through which the diaspora tries to keep its identity alive?
Well, we do we have a national convention every year. I mean, there are different events where like groups try to get together, and
Mhm.
I mean, I think anybody that's part of some kind of group understands that when you're together with your people, you feel more comfortable and you feel in a way like more proud to be part of that group and willing to like talk about it and share it and do more things in the future. So there's different like events that go on. One thing I talk to people about is the digital space. I mean, for all the knocks I give social media, one of the benefits of it is for a community that's scattered around the world, it's given an opportunity to like stay in contact and be united in ways that I think weren't present a few decades ago. So I think there's a like an ability to lean into that now. So you're seeing a lot of like digital spaces start to grow and evolve of Assyrians in Germany, staying in close contact with Assyrians in America and meeting together regularly online and that kind of thing. So that's been one benefit of that.
On a more personal note, I was wondering what it is like to be American Assyrian, to have these two identities together, these two senses of belonging.
You just opened up a tough debate in the community, which is, and it's especially interesting too, I think, if your mom is Assyrian, not your dad, because there's a cultural mindset in some communities in the Middle East that the blood flows through your dad. So if your dad's not
Mm.
Assyrian, you're not considered Assyrian. And I would get that comment mostly from like the older generation, some younger, but mostly older. Is like, oh, your dad's not Assyrian, you're not real Assyrian. I think most of the younger generation doesn't refuse that at this point. There was that debate, and the way I see it as being like a half American, half Assyrian, although I see myself as both like American and Assyrian, is it's given me a really unique and honestly like an empowered access. I feel like I used to think for a while, I have a foot in both worlds, but not 2 feet in both worlds. But now I see it as I have 2 feet in both worlds. So that means I can understand. I didn't grow up in an Assyrian community, by the way. It wasn't until my 20s that I started to like really embrace that side of me.
How did it start?
It was Islamic State stuff. Some of the stuff I mentioned earlier about like hearing some of these stories about what was happening in the community in the Middle East and feeling like I needed to share them or talk about them publicly. That's when I started to get more invested in learning about it and things like that. That's why my language, Assyrian language, is not so great because I didn't grow up speaking it. But yeah, I see it as a benefit. I see I can like navigate like and like understand circles of like farmers in Indiana because that's where I grew up as equally as I can like Assyrians in Iraq. I can like be a chameleon in that sense.
How did your Assyrian background somehow influence the way you report on this community?
I think because I came into it wanting to tell stories that I didn't hear about in a lot of larger media, I knew right away I wanted to tell stories that everybody wasn't talking about. And also seeing a community that I didn't feel like was being covered from a very like human centric point of view, more just like a broad terms. I knew that I wanted to center my stories on faces, on humans, and capturing video helps because you can lead with a character and show people in America what put a face to the story kind of thing. Yeah.
Is there a story you reported on that really stayed with you?
I mean, there's some stories at the Washington Post that I think about often um, that stay with me. I covered the little Palestine community uh, outside of Chicago right before the presidential election. The community there was we were like gauging. I was speaking with community members about like what they felt about the election and which way they were going. I revisited that community after the election to get a sense of in the first 100 days after Trump was elected, to get a sense of how they felt about things, and that's one story that stays with me. I mean, there's a ton of others as well. There's a lot of like personal like stories here, like the farmer in Ankawa. I mean, for most Americans, they'd be like, why should we care about this one farmer in Erbil? It tells a much larger story about like an exodus of like Assyrian Christians from these places.
I have one other question because many times you see this conversation mostly in legacy journalism, this debate about objectivity, about hearing from both sides. Do you feel there is a tension between your, let's call it objectivity as a journalist, your neutrality as a journalist, and your personal connection?
I've gotten questions about it. I think a lot of people from the region have gotten questions about it. I think there's like early on when it was happening, it's easy to let it like get under your skin. But what I've learned is more effective now is, I mean, I'll get like comments from different folks, but I don't let it like I kind of let it like what is it called? Like bounce off your skin. Like I don't like pay it much attention. Continue to focus on the work. Yeah.
Do you feel like it's something that affects the Middle East, particularly more than other areas, other regions in the world?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Mm.
I don't know. The only perspective I can give is just what I've seen, and I do know it has affected people here.
Is there anything you would like to add or you would like to tell the listeners, the viewers that I didn't ask?
The one thing I would leave your audience with is be like the ability to detach and recognize when you're in a bubble, whether that's if you're a reporter, who you're talking to, if you're an observer of things, like what kind of news you're getting, and then trying to break out of that bubble. I mean, this applies to everybody in the world at this point, but like trying to talk to people not in the majority communities, but the minority communities are important to talk to, and that'll give you like a well-rounded like picture of what's going on.
Thank you so much, Joe. It was a really nice conversation. Thank you for accepting this invitation. And thanks to everyone who is listening or watching this podcast. I will see you in a couple of weeks with a new guest to make the East feel a little bit closer.